Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Letters to My Mentees. Thanks for joining me for this long, and I'm going to have our guests say hi. You want to say hi to everybody, Danielle?
Hello. Nice to be here. Thank you, Josh.
Yes, Danielle is joining us for episode 9, and I look forward to introducing you all to her. So as you know, we're going to start every episode with our opening wows. So the opening wows of today is a lack of knowledge creates fear. Seeking knowledge creates courage by Candace Swalthall. So I think what this means is that, again, you always want to be a lifelong learner. I know we all fear the unknown, so why don't learn more and discover the known? Go out, travel, meet new people, learn new experiences, or even do some deep research. Danielle, do you have anything to add on this quote?
I think you pretty much wrapped it up. To not be fearful. That's the key part.
Okay. So now we're going to move into our advising body. And so I'm going to have our guest introduce herself.
Ooh, I'm pretty bad at introductions, but look at it go. Hello, I am Danielle E. White. That's the name I want to show up on my research papers. Second year doctoral student at the University of Southern California, studying materials science. Now, all of that sounds really technical, but I'm pretty full faceted. I like art, dance, food, wine, you name it. Not just a student, which is pretty important to me.
Okay. So me and Danielle met in college. You know, like most of these people, college is a great way to meet, network, make lifelong connections. And so Danielle was part of you could consider my older family. She was like our auntie Danielle, you know, that close person. She was we were both in Nesby. She was on the board at the Actually, I don't think you were there when I started school. I think you came the second half and I met you that summer. But yeah, both in the engineering department, got to know each other, and she served as someone I could bounce ideas off of, someone who could give a lot of good advice, and stayed in contact. And I think she helps me with the grad school stuff and helping me reconsider, and, you know, sometimes forces me to do things I need to do for my health. But beyond that, I wanted to learn about you to talk a little bit about your journey as a Ph.D. student and what you kind of do.
Okay. Well, right now I think there's a whole, buzz about people not knowing that you can do a direct PhD program. And that's when you earn your bachelor's degree and then you go straight for your PhD. You don't necessarily have to stop for your master's. Some programs you have the opportunity, but for me, excuse me, I am a traditional or a direct PhD student. So I'm in it for 5+ years, hopefully only 5 years. Now within materials science, my focus is on materials design of nanomaterials. If we get super, super technical, my project focus is on transparent optical nanomultilayers. And I can break that down for you.
So yeah, let's break it down. Let's start with what are nanomaterials for those who are engineers and those who are not engineers in the listening body.
Cool. Okay. So materials in general is everything. Wood, your bedding, water, they're all materials. Nanomaterials, we have two definitions. One are materials that are like super, super small. A nanometer is, okay, you have like, it's really hard to explain without numbers, but you have a meter and then you say 1 divided by like 1 and 9 zeros after that. Like that's how small a nanometer is in comparison to a regular meter. So that's how small your materials would be. Otherwise, another definition of nanomaterials are designing materials on like the atomic scale. They could be something you could hold, but the design of said materials is on the atomic scale. Yeah.
I think that was clear. And so now with you doing material design, how, like, I heard optical, and so I'm thinking glass, but I'm pretty sure that's not exactly it. So a little clarification?
Sure. One thing I really like about my project and something I'm continue to be amazed by is that I'm not working with glass, but everything I'm working with is transparent. The materials that I work with are aluminum, which is like gray or silver and shiny. You have silicon dioxide, which is just a type of ceramic. If you think of ceramic, think of like a clay pot for your plants or some of your cookware. And all of that, more than likely, is not transparent. It's opaque. However, we have a method of additive manufacturing, 3D printing, if you will, where we're able to build our materials atom by atom from the bottom up into layers. And each layer is only a few nanometers thick. And because they're so thin, that's why like a nanometer thin layer of aluminum is transparent. Or that's why a nanometer layer of ceramic is transparent. And so we're just playing with the combinations of different material systems and see how transparent and how strong we can make it.
Okay. And so what would this be used for? Are we, I'm going to make a joke. Are we making Wonder Woman's invisible jet now, or where are we going with this?
You see, maybe in another life we can make that happen. But right now, the technology is currently being used on the James Webb Space Telescope. That is a project that Northrop Grumman is making for NASA, and it's supposed to launch into space, point into deep space, and be able to capture infrared light from like the Big Bang, basically, when planets were formed. And based on the capturing of that infrared light, we can better understand how our universe was formed. Now, back to the nanomultilayers on this telescope. Excuse me, these layers are coating the mirrors on top of the telescope. And it does that to help filter out any other types of light. So if we think to our physical science class, you'd have like radio waves, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, visible, all that great stuff. Like I said, we're only focused on infrared light there. So the nanomultilayers, they filter out all other wavelengths so that only the infrared light is captured by the telescope.
Okay.
It's a super niche part, a super niche industry, but it's pretty cool.
But hey, I'm talking to an expert, so that's what it is.
You right.
Because for those who don't know, let me make sure I explain this right. When you become a PhD, you're kind of owning your own area of research in that sense. You're becoming the subject matter expert, kind of the end all be all for that niche, as you would say.
Correct. Once you graduate, you, in theory, should be and will be the only person in the world that knows what you know. So yes, yeah, exactly. I laugh and cry at the same time.
So it's all on you, but it's also all on you, you know. They gotta come to you for the questions, and you gotta be able to answer those questions or find the answers.
Exactly. Yeah. If they call me Dr. White, I guess I have to do my job and answer their questions.
Dr. D. White.
Oof, one day.
One day. It's only 3+ more years, but yeah. Let's talk about how you got into being interested in a PhD, because you mentioned before the straight to PhD program, which a lot of people don't know about, but it's also getting people interested because, you know, some people like me, you know, get tired after school, even though I do plan to go back. Just watch, you know, I needed a small break, but I'll be there. But I do think people don't always know their options and they see what's in front of them, not always what could lie beyond the future. So explain how you kind of got into the PhD program and what got you interested.
Sure. Disclaimer though, the way I come about my decisions are very matter of fact. Some would call it discernment. Some would call it like, I don't know, foolishness, but it sticks. It works for me. And so technically I got into a PhD, or I was interested in earning one starting in 7th grade. We were watching some sort of documentary in English class, and documentaries, they have the experts who come up on the screen and they talk about what they know to help enhance the documentary. I saw someone pop on the screen, say their name was like Dr. So-and-so. And I was like, you know what? I want to be in a documentary one day as that person that knows what I know so well that I'm invited to do so. And so I want to be a doctor and I'm going to get my PhD. And that was that. Of course, afterwards, like we did some history or some research and digging into what that actually entails. And long story short, found out that I do really love learning. I liked the field that I was learning in. At the time, it was mechanical engineering. So I was like, why not know all that I can know about what I like to know? It just, it just makes sense to me. So, here we are. Exactly.
Okay. And so let's talk about that transition between undergrad and getting your PhD, because for everybody, there is a difference. It's not the same. And I think that process and that transition is a little different. And, so again, let's mention, I don't know if you all caught this earlier, Danielle did go to A&T, which is a historically Black university, HBCU, Aggie Pride nationwide, but did transition to USC, the University of Southern California, which is a PWI, predominantly white institution. So culture shift in both demographic as well as size. So let's talk about that for a second.
Sure. I graduated in December of 2019, excuse me, and I started my program in January. So not only was I starting a whole new chapter, and I only had maybe like 3 weeks to wind down, but I also had to move amidst it all. So my transition was very abrupt. I would not recommend it to anybody. Don't do it. But in the short time that it took me to transition from undergrad to grad, I learned, it's funny because I was just having this conversation with someone, so I'm going to try not to take their points and truly just reflect on what I was thinking at the time. There are a lot of processes, a lot of procedures that occur in my lab space. And throughout this podcast, when I say lab space, I'm referring to like the office or the work setting that I'm in every day. But because everyone was so into the routine, it's like they didn't even think to properly onboard me. A lot of the things that they take for granted or they just know, of course, I did not know. And so a lot of the transition, and I'm technically still transitioning into being a full researcher, a lot of that has been figuring out what I don't know and then finding out the right people to ask so that I, can do my job. Unfortunately, I wish that it would be reversed, that they could identify resources and sort of like let me know up front, and that would save a lot of time. But alas, here we are. Another big part of the transition was mental health. Not only, like I said, was it such a quick transition, but I was also coming to USC with my own traumas that I was trying to heal. So I had to learn how to put myself first, even when I am taking a graduate course and trying to learn as much as I can in my research project.
Okay. And I think we all have unique transitions. And so now that you're, or at least you're working through that transition, let's talk about, you mentioned your lab space and what you kind of do on the day to day, because graduate school, PhD is both the research and in the first few years, the coursework. So let's kind of go over what that new management style is like, or the new learning principle is.
Right. So undergrad, you have 5, 6, 7 courses. If you're lucky, you don't have an off day, but more than likely, let's say you have courses Monday through Friday. In graduate school, the maximum number of credits you can take generally are like 9, which equals about 2 or 3 classes. And now it sounds amazing, like you have all the time in the world, but these 2 or 3 classes will end up kicking your butt if you don't dedicate the rest of the day to reviewing your notes, doing your homework promptly. So although you only have 3 classes, you still have the same type of load as if you were in the 6 undergrad courses. That was a big shocker to me. So I was taking my classes. And then in addition to class, I'm also sitting in my lab from 9 to 5, like a regular work day. Now, it just so happens that the project I was put on, the person who was on it at the time was about to graduate within the next semester. So I had to use my research time in lab to learn the tips or the tricks of the trade before she left, because otherwise I'd be left hanging and have to figure out everything on my own. And although like Josh is saying, everyone's transition is unique, I feel like that is the general feel for the beginning of a PhD program. A lot of shadowing, a lot of learning the proper procedures, and then also getting accustomed to balancing being in class with something that feels like a part-time / full-time job.
And now, what is your lab work? Because I mean, I know your project. I kind of would like to understand what is entailed. Besides, you gave me a general view, but what is kind of the like nitty gritty details of where you go step up and down and work?
So these nano multi-layers, such a mouthful. The question we're trying to answer with it is there like an optimal type of configuration that can make them really strong and really transparent? Now, the person who was on the project before me, she got the transparent part down packed, so I don't have to figure that out. It just works out that with my mechanical engineering background, I'm able to focus on the mechanical properties of these materials. So I run tests, I analyze them for these mechanical properties, and it's a repetitive cycle until I'm able to understand the data. So, for instance, you want to figure out how hard the materials are, there's a test called nano indentation. If you are a mechanical engineering person, you might have taken a materials or a mechanical lab where you ran like Sharpie impact tests or hardness tests into specimen. I'm doing the exact same thing, but like it's called nano indentation. The points or the indents, they're so small that you can't even see them. But you run a lot of these indents, and based on like the software and some calculations that it does, you're able to figure out the hardness value of your material and the elastic modulus of your material. Both of what I just said are mechanical properties. So there are other tests I run to get similar values and characterize these nano multi-layers. Once they're characterized, then we could figure out how to optimize them.
Okay, so I guess you're getting the background now in the sense, and then from the initial data, you can then figure out how to solve your problem.
Exactly. Excuse me. Yeah.
Okay. And now, so I guess we'll move into kind of, there is the stigma, and you kind of talked about how there is a hyper focus associated with the PhD. You are very you're going to classes at least for the first 2 years, as well as working almost as a high part-time or full-time employee. And it is a balancing act, but I want to kind of shift into that ability to show that's not all it is, and you're still able to be a full functioning person. So I want to get into what you've been able to do is a way of achieving your own goals, as well as just in maintaining school work-life balance in a sense.
Mhm. That is important. Recently, I learned a new word or new phrase, work-life integration. When I say that, just imagine rainbows and sparkles, work-life integration. And the key difference between that and work-life balance is that it's very difficult, impractical to have a balance, like have time that's strictly set for research or strictly set for self-care, stuff like that. And more than likely, they're going to blend into each other. And I have taken work-life integration in stride. So sometimes you may see me taking walks around my building while reading an article, simply because I know I can't sit any longer in front of my computer, but I still need to, get some work done. But that's still related to school, outside of school. I paint. The pandemic has allowed me to take that on as a legit side hustle. But don't tell USC or they'll take my money away. What? Why are you making that face?
No, let's continue.
I mean, you can tell them. They'll be fine. It's only if I have a legit part-time job that they'll be upset and take my money away. What else do I do? I make friends. Oh, the first thing I did when I got to LA was find a church. I grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, so I found one out here. And I joined the young adult Bible study group, and we have just been best buds ever since. I followed right in. They are such amazing humans that allow me to grow pretty much in all the ways outside of school. It's not even like we always talk about God or religion or our faith. It's just they're so personable and open and sharing. So I'd say that they have a lot to do with my work-life integration. Hiking. LA is great for hiking. Are you really in LA if you haven't hiked yet? That's the real question. Yeah, I'm just really bad at thinking about all that I do. I can't even remember what I did yesterday, but I trust me, there's a balance. I promise there's a balance.
I mean, it seems like it. You seem as the fact that you can still laugh and you're still enjoying yourself. And every time I talk to you, you seem to be in the best of spirits. Means despite most of the time, better spirit in goods in good spirits overall. Good in the long term. We play the long game. But yeah, it shows you're having a balance, and from things of painting, going on walks, doing your wine tasting every now and then, which you didn't mention.
It happens.
But yeah, I think it shows you can still be a PhD student and have a full life. And so now I just want to ask, why do you do it? Why are you a PhD student? Besides why in deeper detail? Because you said how you kind of got interested, but why do you persist? Because everyone can say why they did something, but it's also why you persist.
Why do I persist? Well, I have goals. Like I mentioned, I come about them in very strange ways, but when I set my mind to something, it's going to get done. Now, I trust all of y'all that are listening to not go and run and tell the wrong people this, but one day I do want to be CEO of NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And technically, it's the director position. That's what you would call CEO. And the person who is currently in said position, his name is Dr. Michael Watkins. He is a white man, somewhere more than likely above 50. And if I were to have a fair shot at that position one day, regardless of whether he's still in it or not, I just know that I have to be on my A game. If the person who's right there right now is a doctor in white, then I should probably come with my PhD, just to prevent them from saying, oh, you're not qualified for this position. Like I also said, I do really like what I'm learning. So even with like the negative days of research or just, life happening, the fact that I can still find joy in what I'm learning allows me to keep persisting. And then outside of myself, a lot of what I'm doing, where I'm going, it puts me in positions that I'm able to say that I'm the first person, or the first Black person, the first Black woman to do this. And I don't necessarily like that. I want others to see my path as inspiration, allow them to think that whatever they want to do is possible, whether I achieve it or not. The fact that I was working at it, I really hope can inspire someone to believe that they can give it a shot too. Yeah.
Okay. Any advice for the young, hopeful PhDs out there? The next generation, the second, the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the etc.
Okay. Any advice? I have a really strong goal. This is another 4 to 5 plus years of school after you earn your bachelor's degree. A lot of people, some people will say, the PhD process and program is all rainbows. You shouldn't be scared of it. And then there are the other people who will tell you it's the worst thing ever. You should run away and never thinking about it again. I am a realist. It is going to be worth it, but it's going to be difficult. And I'm not saying hard as in close to incapable. I'm just meaning you're going to have to put work into it. And so when you have those down days, whether it's you're just not there mentally or something has happened bad with your research, you have to have that strong goal at the end of the tunnel that keeps you going.
Okay. So thank you, Danielle. And I guess we'll move on to our final segment. So again, everybody remember, this is our final segment, our PS 1, 2, 3s. So 1 piece of content for the day, 2 insights about the world, life, or lessons you've learned, and then 3 things you're grateful for. So we're going to start with number 1. What's your piece of content for today, Danielle?
Oh, there's this book. It's titled, one moment, Unapologetically Ambitious. Take risks, break barriers, and create success on your own terms. Written by Shelley Archambault. I've yet to crack this thing open. However, I've attended some of her book club meetings where she discusses chapters from this book. And I think that whether you read this book or read something along the lines that's written by someone who has been in your, not been in your shoes, excuse me, but is where you want to be one day, having a book like that is my best suggestion for you right now.
Okay. So I guess now, could you give us 2 insights you've learned maybe about life, about the world, or just lessons in general that we can take away?
Yes. Insight 1. In class, in graduate school specifically, there will be some people who will be the person who yells out answers that you don't know. And you couldn't even guess how to come up with that answer if you tried. You have to remember in those moments that everyone in that class is there to learn the same thing. Y'all are starting, or the professor's assuming y'all have the same foundation of knowledge, and you're going to work through the syllabus equally. Whether or not someone else knows something that you didn't is a reflection of their advantage. It doesn't mean that you're at a disadvantage. It just means that they're one up. And so the quicker that you understand that you're not lesser, they're just, in their own world, the less likely that you'll fight with the imposter syndrome throughout your program. Second insight, completely different path that I don't know if anyone out there is religious or Christian in general. But what I'm focused on this week is the concept of shalom, or wholeness, And what that means is that anything that you could ever ask or want for, God has already given it to you. Not just that you already have it, but it's already in your possession. It's been in your possession since you were conceived. And so what that means for me right now, I don't know whether I think I need more guidance. If I need peace in my day, I have to realize that God has already given that to me. And no one can or will take it away. So shalom is my second insight.
Okay. And then we've done one, we've done two. Now we just need you to give three things to express gratitude for.
Well, as always, I am grateful that God has woken me up another day, allowed me to see the sun or the clouds and the rain today.
Rain in LA, funny.
Right, exactly. In the summer at that. Secondly, I am grateful for my friends, those who are in my close circle and those who are not. We always cross paths at the right moments. We always say what we needed to hear to each other. And for that, I'm truly grateful that we're able to continue to uplift each other. And thirdly, I'm grateful for my family. They just came out to visit me. I was telling one of my friends that I felt like Drake and Party Next Door, asking them to come and see me for once. And they finally did. So it makes me warm that they were able to spend a few days with me in LA.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is all, this brings us to the end of another episode of Letters to My Mentees. Thank you, Danielle, for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me. Truly, truly, truly.
And yeah, remember everybody, you can listen to us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you find podcasts. And remember, join us weekly so you can be inspired, and hopefully one day I can share your success story. See you next week.